If we ignored consistency as a principle, I think what we'd find is that everything was different. Everything had its own little way of working, and people would find things very difficult to use and they'd be frustrated. My name's Stephen Shaw. I'm design partner at Big Motive, and I'm a user experience designer. I make apps, websites, digital products easier to use, better to use, delightful to use. Consistency as a design principle, it's not about uniformity. It's not about boring repetitiveness. It's about patterns and rhythms and establishing those in a way that lets people that are reading your design or using your design understand how to get through it, understand how to use it simply. It makes sense to them. Really good examples of consistency are out there. We use them every day. The obvious ones would be Apple and Google. They've had to develop really consistent experiences for products like phones that we all use. Consistency in the way they present information so that you understand and you can make sense of what you're doing, whether you're on any one of their products. Consistency, I think, is really important in design because it tempers the designer's natural tendency to invent new stuff and create new kinds of experiences. And it encourages you to think about the user and think about what they need and think about the context that they're in. So this is a recent project that I worked on with the team at Big Motive. It's a VR storybook for kids called Tara's Locket. And what we wanted to do was imagine how a children's storybook might be retold if virtual reality was the medium. It's for kids 6, 7, 8 years old. We used consistency where the design was invisible, where the interface was invisible. It's for virtual reality, so you feel as though you're in the world. And we like the idea that you shouldn't have interfaces. There shouldn't be things there with you that normally you might expect to be on the screen. So we needed an experience that was highly consistent in the way you interact with it because we were already taking so much out and stripping so much back. So we designed a system in which the user's gaze is the means by which they interact. When you look at a particular point, the system notices that your gaze is focused on that. The elements, in this case, the little birds, start to glow. And if you focus on them long enough, that's what triggers the interaction with them. So it's an interface that is almost invisible, but that had to be consistent for every time you use that aspect of it. It had to be clean and understandable, especially as our audience was younger. And we were teaching them how to navigate through this completely new kind of virtual world. Another example of where consistency was important in this design project was the scenes between the scenes. So we were having to consider how words and written text would work within a virtual environment. And we knew we would have to do this slightly differently from a magazine or a conventional website. What we came up with was this long flowing line of words that you follow. And we used that then between each of the scenes in the same way, working the same way, and even encouraging readers to read the same way so that the kids would be able to make sense of it and could work through that part of the experience in a way that was familiar to them and easy. Consistency was so important for this project because we were using a technology that is very new and that people aren't very comfortable using yet, and because our audience was very young. So consistency was at the heart of helping guide people through this and making it make sense and making it hold together as a cohesive piece of design. It can be hard to use consistency effectively as a principle because it's a constant balancing act. You're trying to make sure things don't become too rigid and locked down and we squeeze creativity out of it. Equally, we don't want things to be so broad and so easily interpreted that it's just a free-for-all and the experience becomes confused. If I had a top tip for a new designer regarding the principle of consistency, it would be to use it to limit your palette, build the rules so that you know how to break them.